Betsy Thompson. I'd like to invite you to join us in a series on overcoming codependency behaviors. I have Sharon Brown with me and Annetta Collier. And if you have watched any of our other lessons, you will remember that we talked about feelings, how important it was to get in touch with our feelings, to learn to feel our feelings. Without that, we cannot go on to the other steps. It's a lifelong journey. It's not something we do overnight, but it is essential to the other steps in recovery. We talked a little bit about how all this caregiving that we're doing and giving up our life, giving up our identity to give to other people is actually a means of controlling. And once we realize how controlling that is, as codependents, we will want to stop because codependents are not basically controlling people. That was not what they were doing all that for. And the only reason that they could be doing all of that controlling was because they're in so much denial. We talked about how denial is very important to us at certain stages in our life. And it's a very important part of the grieving stage. It helps us through very difficult times that are so painful we could not face the pain all at once. But to live our whole life in denial is very destructive to us. And so we come out of the denial to stop some of the controlling. And in all of this, we've got to be learning to feel our feelings. Well, what is the next step after we have realized how controlling we've been and that we've been in denial? We start getting in touch with some of the reality in our life. The next step is acceptance. Accepting our situation exactly as it is today and at this moment. And the first thing we want to do in acceptance is to stop obsessing, because most codependents are obsessed about the things and people in their lives. In our little booklet, we read, "The feeling hits you in the stomach. It fills up that gut-twisting, hand-wringing anxiety that is familiar to codependents. It's what causes us to do much of what we do that hurts ourselves. It's the substance that worry and obsession feed upon. It's fear at its worst. You see, real fear comes and goes, but this kind of fear hangs in there. It grips the mind, paralyzing it for all but its own purposes. Endless rehashing of the same useless thoughts. It is the fuel that propels us into controlling behaviors of all sorts." And so if we want to quit the controlling behavior that we're doing, we want to quit obsessing. We've got to find out how we're being obsessive, the things we're obsessing about, and how to quit it. When you're obsessed, you can't get your mind off that person or problem. You don't know what you're feeling. Go back to feelings. You see, we've got to decide, now, what is it I'm feeling? What is making me do this? You don't know what you're thinking. You're not even sure what you should do. Worrying, obsessing, and controlling are illusions. They're part of the denial that we're in. They're tricks that we play on ourselves. We feel like we're doing something about the problem, but we're not doing anything. We're just staying in the obsessive part. Many of us have reacted this way with justifiably good reasons. We may have lived with serious, complicated problems that have disrupted our lives and would have provoked any normal person to become anxious, upset, worried, and obsessed. However, out of habit, we may have developed an attitude of attaching to these problems, of worrying, reacting instead of responding, and obsessively trying to control.
Okay, Betsy, so you saying fear causes people not to accept things?
Yes, the fear of what might happen if they let go, if they quit controlling, the fear of what they might feel if they start feeling their feelings. Before we can let go of the obsessing, before we can let go of the controlling, and before we can come out of denial, we've got to get in touch with our feelings. And then slowly, one step at a time, we can work through the steps. Now, we don't want to be too hard on ourselves about being obsessive and controlling and in denial. because up until this point in our lives, it may have been the only way that we could keep things in balance. It may be that we have been attached to people, living their lives for them and through them for so long that we don't have a life of our own. We don't have any life left to live, and it's safer to stay attached because at least we know we're alive if we're reacting. As our loved ones begin to pull away from us and go on and live their own lives, and we feel the emptiness of our own lives, we will want to latch on tighter and we become more controlling and in more denial.
So you're saying people attach themselves so that they can control
So they can
others?
control, they think that they're controlling their own lives, but they're actually losing their lives in other people.
And sometimes you might think you're helping a person, and you're really hurting them, aren't you?
Yes, definitely. And we're going to talk about that tonight as we accept situations exactly as they are. It is going to be the greatest thing we can do for them is accept them like they are instead of to continue trying to change them, make them and mold them into what we think they ought to be. Codependents tend to attach themselves to their problems and loved ones. Never mind that worrying isn't solving anything. Never mind that they're so obsessed with these problems or people in their lives that they can't even concentrate enough to read a book or watch television or go for a walk. Never mind that their emotions are constantly in turmoil over what their loved ones said or didn't say or what they meant to say. No matter what the cost, codependents will grit their teeth, clutch the rope, and grab more tightly than ever. They may love too much, care too much to do anything but stay attached to this person and their problems. And their first step toward learning acceptance is to brand this message into their brains. It does not matter if these loved ones are hurting themselves. It does not matter if we could help them if they would only listen to us. We've got to come to the reality that that doesn't matter because they've let us know that they don't care what we think, that they don't want our help. We've done everything we could possibly do to help them, and they don't want it. And we've got to realize their problems do not matter to us.
So we just have to let go.
Let go, exactly.
That's
And
hard.
let go of the
That's right.
obsessive controlling. Our basic recovery concept that never loses its power to work miracles is the concept called acceptance. And once we understand acceptance better and begin to try to let it work in our lives, all the other steps will start working better too, and we will feel growth in the other areas. True acceptance of an individual as they are without trying to change them through encouragement or manipulation or coercion is a very high form of love. And you know, that's the kind of love God has for us. He's told us what he wants us to do. We know what God wants from us, but he gives us the choice. And yet when we get into all this obsessive, controlling behavior, we're not even giving our loved ones the choice that God gives them.
That's correct.
But it is also a very difficult thing for most of us to practice. But when we stop and really think about it and realize that at the bottom of all of our efforts to change someone else is a basically selfish motive. We believe that through their changing, we will be happy. If our child got off drugs, we could be happy.
Okay, so we are trying to find happiness through others.
Exactly. Of course, if we have a loved one in trouble, we're going to be sad. But we have a life of our own, and we detach from that problem. We're there for them. We're there to do anything for them, but we don't live our lives through them. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy, but to place the source of that happiness outside yourself in someone else's hands means you avoid your ability and responsibility to change your own life for the better. And so, once again, what we're doing is escaping reality by doing this, escaping responsibility for our own life and our own problems. Ironically, it is this very practice of acceptance that allows another to change if they choose to do so. We do not achieve acceptance in a moment. We often have to work through a mirage of feelings. There we go, back to feelings again. Back to feelings again. In some of my classes, at the very beginning of the lesson on feelings, I have suggested they get a pen or pencil or a highlighter. And through the rest of the booklet, every time we talk about feelings, mark it or highlight it. And you will see how important it is to get in touch with our feelings. I think the one most important thing. So if we get to the point that we say, I want to accept my situation the way it is, I want to get to that level of recovery, the first thing that's going to happen is all kinds of feelings are going to flood us from the past. Things that we thought we had worked through, but new things that come out and need to be dealt with. It may be anger, it may be outrage, shame, or self-pity, or sadness, because we have wasted our whole life on another individual who really didn't even want our help. But the one thing I want you to remember in this is, if acceptance is your goal, you will achieve it. Do not give up, do not be discouraged. The first thing towards accepting your situation and the reality of your life as it is at this moment is to accept yourself. That means you laugh at your weakness, you're grateful for your strengths, you accept the entire package of you with all your feelings, all your thoughts, all your tendencies, yes, even your history. Everything that's happened to you in your life, you accept it. It doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean that you don't wish it had been different, but you just accept it the way it is.
So dealing with the problem, it helps you in recovery, is that what you...
Yes, it will push you so far forward in your recovery when you get to acceptance. And remember, this is a lifelong journey. You will do it very well at times, and at other times you won't be able to do it at all. Do not be discouraged. Accepting our circumstances is another miraculous cure. For anything or anyone to change, we must first accept ourselves and others and our circumstances exactly as they are. And that's just coming to terms with reality. And then we need to take it one step further and become grateful for ourselves and for our circumstances. That is a tough one. Some of us have been through so many tragedies that we think, there's no way I can be grateful for that one or this one. That's too much. It's too much to ask. But do you know what? If you have turned your will over to the will of God, then we can know that we are exactly where we are supposed to be at this moment in our life. And that helps us to accept whatever has happened in our past. When you're trying to accept and you're in a very bad situation where normally you would begin obsessing and trying to change it and trying to control it, surrender to the moment. Realize that you're trying to do something only God can do and surrender to it. Ride it out and ride through it. It doesn't mean to deny it. That doesn't solve anything. Ride through the problem for all it's worth. Throw yourself into it. Throw yourself into it as much as you did the obsessing. But this time you're going to throw yourself into accepting what's going on at the moment.
And if we do that, as you're saying, then it would be easier for instance, if it's me, to get through my hanging on and my domineering.
And at the moment, you may be thrown so off balance that simply riding through it is all you can do right then. You can get some balance later. As soon as you get over the shock of what's happened, then you can begin to do all of your recovery things and all the good, healthy things. For the moment, you may just be able to ride through it. Also, stop resisting it. Stop resisting the awful thing that's going on, that's really upsetting you. So much of our anguish is created when we are in resistance. So much relief, release, and change are possible when we accept.
So you saying
Simply
don't.
accept.
So you saying don't fight it, just
Don't
accept
fight it. Don't fight the problem. Just, you don't have to like it. Remember that.
Okay.
Just accept it because it's out of your hands. Resistance and repression will not change a thing. Denying it, stuffing it, suppressing it, it's not going to change a thing. It will put you at war with your thoughts. Resisting events or circumstances in your life does not change things, no matter how undesirable the events or circumstances may be. But acceptance turns you into the person you are and were meant to be. Acceptance empowers the events and circumstances to turn around for the better. What do we do if we're in resistance, in a tug of war with some reality in our life? Okay, what do we do if we're trying with everything in us to accept, to not deny it, not depress it, not control the situation, and we can't do it and we begin to panic? I can't do all this. We accept the fact that we are in resistance. Isn't that wonderful? When you can't do another thing, accept
Resist.
it.
Yeah.
Except I can't do anything
At
right
that
now.
time.
I can't do my recovery right now. That will bridge you over to when you can do something about it. Now, this is important to remember. Acceptance does not mean we're giving our approval. It doesn't mean it's not hurting us. It doesn't mean that we approve of it or anything. It means that we're accepting it. It does not mean surrendering to the wills and plan of another person. It does not mean commitment, that we're going to have to accept that for the rest of our life. Something could come up later that you could use to resolve it. You could really help that person later. It means for right now, all you can do is accept the situation the way it is. It doesn't mean forever. It is for the present moment. Acceptance doesn't make things harder. It makes things easier. It does not mean we accept abuse or mistreatment. We are not expected to accept that. It does not mean we forego ourselves or our boundaries, our hopes, our dreams, our desires, or our wants. We don't forego that. It means we accept what is, so we know what to do to take care of ourselves and what boundaries we need to set. It means we accept what is and who we are for the moment, so we are free to change and grow. And acceptance and surrender moves us forward on this journey. Force doesn't work. We have found that out in all the things we've done, all of our lives in the past. It did not work. This works.
Force by work.
Acceptance and surrender, two of the things that hurt the most, but do the most good. Okay? We have just a few minutes left, and I believe we have a children's section on this. In Kevin's Corner, we have a children's story where we can begin teaching our children or our grandchildren how to learn to accept situations that we can't do anything about. Let's teach them when they're young, not so their life will be perfect and free of problems, but so they'll know how to deal with things that they cannot do anything about. If you would like some more information on these lessons, I would like to invite you to write to We Are Not Alone, and the address is 185 Anthus Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37210. In some of the other lessons, we have talked about how important it is to write down our feelings, write down our thoughts, write down our experiences, write down what we've been through. Write. It will help you so much in your journey on recovery. And at the end of each of our lessons in our booklet, we have a little homework to do, something that will help you put the lesson to use in your life. At the end of this lesson, we have made some suggestions. Make 3 separate lists. On the first list, write down the way you see your present circumstances. On the next list, write down the way you wish they were. And then read both lists off and write down the way they really are. because oftentimes we will tend to overreact to the situation if we're in obsession and controlling. And if you see it on paper, you may realize, you know, it really wasn't that bad. You may realize that's not exactly how it happens. I'm overreacting to that. Write down the way it really is, and then you can accept the way it is. And we have just a few minutes left, and I want to go back to something in this lesson. When I read the lesson on acceptance, I always think of the Apostle Paul and that beautiful scripture in Philippians 4:11 where he said, I have learned to be content in whatever state I'm in. And I can't help but wonder if Paul had learned the lesson of acceptance that we have to learn. Sharon, what were some of the things that you got out of our past lessons that meant a lot to you?
Well, like in the lesson feeling, I learned how to deal with my feelings, and then I'm trying to think, well, with control, I learned a lot about not letting someone control my life and not controlling someone else's life.
Mm-hmm. Annetta, did you have anything you wanted to add to our lesson on acceptance?
On acceptance, I think that I'm in that stage now, and I hope. I was really listening because I have a hard time accepting. I have a hard time letting go. And I think if I accept, as you have explained it, then I might be able to. And I mean, I guess you wonder what am I letting go of our children, how to deal with children.
It's hard to do. Thank you, ladies, for joining me, and I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to invite you to stay tuned for Kevin's Corner and join us next week as we talk about detachment.
Hi, I'm Kevin. This is Kevin's Corner. These are my friends, Mario, Eric, and Perez. Today our story's going to be Facing the Truth. Betsy?
Thank you, Kevin. We've been telling stories about Jamie, and our last story was about pretending nothing's wrong, and we learned about what happens when we have problems at home and you try to pretend like nothing's wrong. Today we're going to talk about what happens when you face the truth and you face your problems and talk about them. And it's going to be a story about Jamie. Jamie came running in the house after school one day. Mommy, I'm so happy today. Do you remember my new friend at school? The one that was so sad and hardly ever smiled? Today he was very happy and he smiled a lot. And we had a lot of fun together. Jamie, why do you think he changed like that? Asked Mother. Mommy, you were right. He was having some family problems at home, and today he told me a little bit about them. His daddy had lost his job, and every time Jamie came home, his daddy would start yelling and shouting at everybody. Jamie was very scared and mixed up about it, and wanted his daddy to be nice and fun like he used to be. When Jamie tried to talk to his mother or older sister about it, they only said, "Shh, be quiet. You'll only make it worse." And so he had to keep all his thoughts and feelings to himself. But finally, his aunt called him aside and talked to him about it and helped him understand that it was not unusual for his daddy and mother and sister to be acting like they were. She told him that when you have family problems, sometimes other family members don't act right. But this is only for a while until everything gets back to normal. Jamie, I'm so happy you and your friend had fun today and that your friend is no longer sad. When someone has problems in their family, it's very important to be truthful about the problems. It's very important to understand what's happening and why it's happening. When you learn to see things the way they really are instead of how you wish they were or how they could be, then you're free to be happy. And even though there may be problems at home, you can still be happy. Oh, said Jamie, now I understand why pretending things are okay when they are not makes you sad. That's right, Jamie, said Mother. It's better to know what's really happening. Then you can ask Jesus to help you with it and ask him to help make things better. I'm glad I learned that when we have family problems, I can still be happy because I will know that it will probably only be for a while. Sharon's got some questions to ask.
Caress, why did Jamie's mother and sister say when he tried to talk about the family problems?
They said, shh.
Great,
Good.
Caress.
Okay, Kevin, why is it important to see things the way they really are?
Because when you pretend things are different than they are, it causes mixed up feelings.
Good,
That's a good
Kevin.
answer. Mario, what is another reason for facing the truth?
Then you will know what to ask Jesus to help you with.
Good answer, Mario.
Very good, kids. Thanks for listening today. I hope you learned something. Thanks for coming, Kevin. Let's see your pictures. Ooh, pretty. Beautiful. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for coming to Kevin's Corner. See you next week.